So I've now spent almost 2 months here in Bali as a digital nomad and online entrepreneur. I made a video on my thoughts on Bali after my first 30 days, but now having been back here for another 2 to 3 weeks, I've actually slightly changed my mind about Bali. So today I want to give my updated thoughts on the full list of pros and cons of Bali, specifically for digital nomads, expats, and online business owners. Because the first time here, I had very mixed feelings about the place. There was a lot of things I disliked about it, but also a lot of things I really liked about it. So today I want to give my full thoughts on Bali compared to all of these other places in terms of what Bali does really well and what Bali does not do that well. So that then what you can do is take this list and essentially assign weights to all these pros and cons based on what is important to you and make up your own mind on whether Bali could be for you. So the first big con of Bali is the traffic and the what I call overcrowdedness. And Bali's traffic can be extremely chaotic, especially in the popular areas like Canggu, Brava, Kuta, Uluwatu, things like this. Because the thing with Bali is that it was not built for the amount of people that are here. It used to be just a small village, but now with this popularity from not only tourists, but also digital nomads and expats and people actually living here from abroad, it has simply become completely overcrowded, but they are actually trying to improve the infrastructure. And based on what I've heard someone else say, it has apparently actually got better compared to a few years ago. So it could be that now is sort of just a peak time when there is just too much people for the infrastructure, and because the infrastructure just kind of lags, it hasn't caught up to essentially support the amount of people that are here. And it could be that in a few years it will actually be better. I don't know, so we'll just have to wait and see, but it is definitely a big con. However, though, the second time being here, I've been able to manage it a bit better because I've been able to just avoid the very busy roads, because now I know what the busy roads are at the very busiest times, because now I know what the busiest times are. So if you manage it, it is actually manageable. But when you happen to get stuck in that traffic, like, it is just the worst thing in the world. Like, it literally makes me question my life, like inhaling the gas when you're sitting on your motorbike or something like that. Not fun at all. Now, the first big pro of Bali, and actually I guess the biggest reason why I came back here, is just the range of activities you have here. For me, this is where Bali has its role for me in my life. For certain times of the year, for certain parts of the year, I want to be in a place that is just really fun. Like, that's just how I would describe Bali. It's just the most fun place you can be. There's so many amazing beach clubs, like nightlife if you're into that, like so many things to do. That is what you're looking for. Then Bali is gonna offer more of that and higher quality of that than many of the other perhaps similar places around Asia, at least in my experience. I'm not just talking about like fun partying. You have paddle, you have tennis courts, you have the best gyms in the world. We'll talk more about that in a second. Surfing, beaches, like the sunsets here are really awesome. And this is something that I realized being out of Bali. For example, when I was in Da Nang in Vietnam, which is also a popular digital nomad place, after like 2 weeks there, we just pretty much ran out of things to do. Like, it just doesn't have the same level and the same standard of facilities for like bowling, like all these kinds of things that you'd want to do. So it made me realize just how much Bali actually offers, and that is why I actually do like being here, but just not for the entire year. Which brings us actually to the next con, which is that it is more of a holiday vibe. Now, this might sound like I'm contradicting myself. I just told you that the fact that it's so fun is a pro. So then how can it also be a con? Well, this is where we sort of get to the fact that every place isn't supposed to offer everything. For parts of the year, I want to be in certain kind of vibes, and for the other parts of the year, I want to be in a different kind of vibe. For most of the year, I want to be in a place like a big city where I can get a lot of work done, where I'm really motivated to work, where I'm really just focused on running my business. Now, that place to me is Dubai, where I spend most of my year. But for part of the year, I want to be in a more of a holiday, kind of more relaxed kind of place. But for the entire year, at least at this stage of my life, it simply wouldn't work, because while there are a lot of online entrepreneurs here, there's a lot of networking here to be done. I feel like the people in Bali just aren't as serious about running a big business, because this is just not the kind of place that is built for building a super serious business. And it's also the kind of place where it's easy to get carried away with all of this lifestyle, and we are very affected by the people around us. So when you see everyone around you relaxing, you might feel like, well, I don't need to work that hard. So some of the time I want that, but a lot of the time I also don't want that. So that's why it's also a con. And the next pro is the variety of food. And this is another thing that I realized only when I went out of Bali, when I went to some of the other places like Vietnam, for example, where you have great food, but the variety wasn't really there. Like in Vietnam, you might have non-Vietnamese food, but the quality wasn't always that good. And you didn't have as big of a range of amazing like cafes, restaurants for all types of cuisines as you do in Bali. In here, you can get any type of food and also very good options for all kinds of foods as well. Whether you want sushi, Western food, Asian food, Indonesian food, you have it here in Bali. Especially for me, I like cafes. The cafes here are also very aesthetic. They just have nice vibes to sit around in them. So that is really what I realized that I really like about Bali. It's just a variety of food, not just the quality of food for specific cuisines, but the quality of food for all kinds of cuisines that I really like here. The next con is non-walkability. I'm someone who likes to go on walks. Like I like to get like 10,000, 15,000 steps a day. When I'm in Bali, I just don't, because you just cannot walk. Like, especially when it's busy, like you could technically walk along the streets, but when it's busy, you simply cannot do that because there's literally motorbikes going along the pedestrian walkways, again, because of the traffic, because there's so much traffic on the street. Like the traffic essentially then extends to the pedestrian parts of the street. When there are pedestrian parts to the street, a lot of the time they simply don't have sidewalks. So it's not as big of a gripe for me as it perhaps was the first time I was here, now that I'm used to it, but it is something to keep in mind. The next big pro is the health and gym culture. Now, one thing that Bali definitely does better than pretty much any place that I've been to here is the quality of gyms and just the ability to live a very healthy lifestyle. Now, this is kind of the Canggu culture. Like everyone here seems to be fit, like people are really good looking. It seems like people here really take care of their bodies, which is just nice to be around. And the quality of the gyms here is absolutely world class in my opinion. Some of the best gyms I've ever been to are here in Bali. The one I've been going to in Canggu is called Body Factory. Really great gym. But with that said, they are very expensive. And the thing here is that you don't see a lot of fast food around, right, like you would in places like the Philippines. In the Philippines, for example, it seems like all the food is just fried, like not that healthy. Here, the kind of food you see around is super healthy. So many healthy food options, and it just feels like the place is built for gym bros like me who really want to track my calories. I want to get my protein in. I want to drink protein shakes. Like they literally have specific cafes just for protein shakes, which is just really awesome to me. I haven't found those in any other places around Asia. So for someone who is really focused on living a healthy lifestyle, going to the gym, Bali really makes that easy. On the con side, we have the infrastructure. So what I'm talking about is, for example, the road. So the physical infrastructure of the place is just not built to support the amount of people that are here. But we already talked about that. But then sometimes as well, things like internet speeds, like just electricity. Like the first time in our villa in Canggu, when I went to take a shower, suddenly the electricity just went off and we didn't know why. And it turns out that when we had the AC on, as well as we were cooking food and we were trying to run the hot water in the shower, there was apparently too much electricity in one go. So the villas here literally have a limit to how much electricity you can be using at any given time, because Bali is just an island. I guess they have issues with like getting power there. So you really have to conserve your energy. But it's not a huge deal. Just sometimes there are like small things when it comes to this that are not ideal. And if you're outside of, let's say, the very popular areas like Canggu, like right now I'm in Uluwatu, in some villas that you rent here, they might literally not have air conditioning in some parts of the villa. Like for example, right here in this villa that I'm right now, I actually wanted to film this video in this room that's right next to me, but there were no plugs in the entire living room area of this villa. So I couldn't plug in my light for me to film set. That's why I came here outside, so I can film with the natural light. And the hot water wasn't working in this villa when we came here. There's also no air conditioning in this main living room area of this villa. So there are sometimes things like this based on the specific area you're staying in, based on the specific villa you're staying in, that you want to be careful about. But the villa where we mainly stayed here in Canggu was absolutely fine. I actually really like the villa. I made a full tour about it here that you can watch on the channel. But you want to pick the place where you stay carefully to make sure you have air conditioning in the entire villa, and you want to keep some of these things in mind about the infrastructure. And if you do that, you will be fine. But as a first-time visitor, if you're coming from a developed place, you might not expect some of these things. And then on the pro side, we have the fact that Bali does have great visa options for digital nomads. For example, they have a 1-year digital nomad visa that gives you a full residence permit in the country, and all you have to do is prove around $60,000 a year in income, and then you just apply for it. It's not that expensive either, and you can just live in Indonesia now. In a lot of countries, it's not that simple to do that. and you might have to resort to doing something like visa runs that before this visa existed in Indonesia, a lot of people here were doing. So just practically, that makes Indonesia a really good option. So as a conclusion, do I like Bali? Well, I kind of still have a love-hate relationship with it. There's a lot of things that I really, really like and a lot of things that I really don't like. I think I will have Bali as part of my residency portfolio for part of the year. When Dubai is too hot, I will spend a few months here to get access to the lifestyle, perhaps not be as focused on work, because on the fun side, for me, Bali does that better than any other place. And overall, what I like about Bali, and specifically we're talking about Canggu, we're talking about the popular areas. Bali is of course a huge island. You could go to the more untouched parts of Bali if you really want to, but probably you don't actually want to do that because the infrastructure there is just not really gonna support the kind of life that you probably want to live. But what I really like about Canggu, these areas, is that out of these island vibe kind of places in Asia, it just simply offers the most. It offers the best variety of food, the best range of activities, just the best convenience out of these kinds of places. A lot of these other islandy, sort of more small town places I've been to, there's always something that you're sacrificing on in terms of lifestyle, access to things, because I'm like a city person generally. I like being in cities because of all the things that cities give me access to. Canggu is kind of unique in that it gives you access to almost same level of convenience as a city while still not being a city and while still having the beach and all that more like relaxed vibes, if that is what you're looking for. So that is why for part of the year, I do overall like the place, while there are still many things that I also don't like about it. Let me know what you think about it in the description. I mentioned the visas before. If you're looking to move to Bali, I actually made a full detailed guide on all the visa options that you have to move here in Bali. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you watch this video because I just go through all the options you have so you can pick the one that is right for you. So go watch that video next, and I'll see you in the next one.